The formula of kindness. The fluorescent lights of Savamart hummed softly above the aisles, casting their pale glow over rows of products that stretched toward the back of the store. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day when time seemed to move slowly, when the world felt quiet and ordinary. Outside, gray clouds gathered in the sky, promising rain before evening fell. Sarah Mitchell stood in the baby formula aisle, her hands trembling slightly as she reached toward a canister on the shelf. Her blonde hair, once shiny and well-kept, now hung in tired waves around her face. The beige sweater she wore was clean but worn thin at the elbows. Her jeans had seen better days, with frayed holes at the knees that hadn't been put there by fashion. In her left arm, she held Emma, her 18-month-old daughter. The little girl's blue eyes were wide and trusting, her chubby fingers clutching at her mother's shoulder. Emma was beautiful, innocent, unaware of how dramatically their lives had changed in the past 6 months. Sarah's eyes scanned the prices on the formula cans. Each one might as well have been marked in gold. $38. $42. The numbers blurred together as tears threatened to form. She blinked them away quickly. There was no time for crying. There was only survival. She glanced around the aisle. An elderly woman pushed her cart past slowly, not looking up. Near the end of the aisle, a store employee restocked shelves, his back turned. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest like a drum. She had never stolen anything in her entire life. She had been raised better than this. She had once been better than this. But Emma needed to eat. Sarah's hand closed around a canister of formula. The metal felt cold against her palm. She pulled it from the shelf and tucked it quickly into her oversized purse, her movement swift but clumsy from nervousness. The weight of it sat heavy, not just physically but morally. Shame burned hot in her cheeks. She turned to leave the aisle, keeping her head down, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. Just make it to the door, she told herself. Just make it out, and Emma will have what she needs for another week. Excuse me, miss. The voice came from behind her, deep and calm but unmistakably firm. Sarah froze. Her whole body went rigid. Emma sensed the tension and made a small worried sound. Sarah turned slowly. Standing before her was a tall man in an impeccably tailored gray suit. He had dark hair styled neatly, and his jawline could have been carved from stone. Everything about him spoke of success, of a life where $38 formula cans were meaningless expenses. His watch alone probably cost more than Sarah had earned in the last year. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not anger. Not disgust. Something else. Something almost like recognition. I believe you have something in your bag that you haven't paid for, the man said quietly. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Emma whimpered and buried her face against her mother's shoulder. The sounds of the store seemed to fade away until there was only the pounding of Sarah's heart and the man's steady gaze. Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Her hands shook as she reached into her purse and pulled out the canister of formula. She held it out to him, her eyes downcast, unable to meet his gaze. A tear finally escaped and rolled down her cheek. Please, she said, her voice breaking. Please don't call the police. I've never done anything like this before. She needs to eat. She's hungry, and I don't have any money left, and I didn't know what else to do. The man took the canister from her gently. For a long moment, he said nothing. Sarah stood there, waiting for whatever came next. Arrest. Humiliation. The loss of the only thing she had left, her daughter. Then he spoke, and his voice was softer than before. Sarah Mitchell. Her head snapped up, her eyes meeting his in shock. How did he know her name? The man's expression had changed. There was wonder in it now, and something that looked like disbelief. It is you, he said quietly. You probably don't remember me. It's been almost 12 years. He was thinner then. Younger. Much more desperate. Sarah stared at him, searching his face. Something tugged at her memory, but she couldn't quite grasp it. The man set the formula canister on a nearby shelf and held out his hand. "Daniel Harrison," he said. "Though back then, I was just Danny. The homeless kid you found sleeping behind the dumpster of your father's restaurant." Sarah's eyes widened. The memory came flooding back like a wave. 12 years ago she had been 19, home from her first year of college, working at her father's small diner for the summer. One night, taking out the trash, she had found a teenage boy huddled against the brick wall, shivering despite the warm June air. He had been maybe 16 or 17, all sharp angles and haunted eyes. She had brought him inside, against her father's initial protests. She had made him a hot meal, given him a coat, sleeped him $40 from her own savings, money she had been saving for textbooks. And she had talked to him. Really talked to him. Told him that whatever had happened, whatever had brought him to that alley, didn't have to define his future. "Danny?" Sarah breathed. You're Danny." Daniel nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "I am, and you're the woman who changed my life." He gestured around at the store. "This is my company now. I own Savamart. All 63 locations across the state. After that night, after what you said to me, I went to a shelter. Got my GED. Worked 3 jobs while going to community college. Transferred to a university. Started in retail management and worked my way up. I never forgot what you did for me, Sarah. I never forgot your kindness." Sarah felt dizzy. This successful man in his expensive suit was the terrified boy from the alley? "I tried to find you," Daniel continued. "Years ago, when things finally started going well for me. But your father's restaurant had closed, and I had no other way to track you down. I wanted to thank you. To repay you." He looked at Emma, who was peeking at him curiously from her mother's shoulder. "What happened to you?" he asked gently. "How did you end up here?" Sarah's story came out in quiet, halting words. Her marriage to Michael, which had seemed so perfect. Emma's birth. Then Michael's betrayal, the financial devastation when he left them with massive debts she hadn't known about. The loss of their home. The loss of her job when she couldn't afford childcare. The descent into a shelter, then into her car, now barely running. "I had help once," she finished softly. "But that ran out. And I was too proud to ask for more." To is sham. Daniel listened to every word. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up the formula canister again. "Come with me," he said. He led her through the store, not to the security office as she had feared, but to the customer service desk. He spoke quietly to the manager there, who nodded and hurried to get a shopping cart. "Fill it," Daniel told Sarah. "Everything you need. Formula, diapers, food. Whatever you and Emma require." "I can't," Sarah began. "Yes, you can," Daniel said firmly but kindly. "You gave me $40 when you probably needed it for yourself. You gave me hope when I had none. Let me do the same for you now." Tears streamed freely down Sarah's face now. Emma reached up and patted her mother's wet cheeks with her small hands, as if trying to comfort her. With Daniel's encouragement, Sarah slowly filled the cart. Formula. Diapers. Baby food. Fresh fruit. Bread. Milk. Things she hadn't been able to afford in weeks. But Daniel wasn't finished. At the checkout, he handed Sarah an envelope. "Inside is a check for $5,000, he said. "It's enough for first and last month's rent on an apartment, with extra for necessities. There is also a business card. Call that number tomorrow. It's our corporate HR department. We have an opening for an assistant manager position. The job is yours if you want it. It comes with health insurance and childcare assistance." Sarah couldn't speak. She could only stare at the envelope in her shaking hands. "I also need your car looked at," Daniel continued. There's a card for our company mechanic. Take it there tomorrow. Whatever it needs.